Hello, we'll continue with Julius Caesar. So we are on page 119, and here we have this part, which is enter Mark Antony and others with Caesar's body. So now Antony is going to speak at the funeral of Caesar. So Brutus, who is already in the pulpit, says, here comes his body. Here comes the body of Caesar, mourned by Mark Antony, who, though he had no hand in his death, shall receive the benefits of his dying, a place in the commonwealth, as which of you shall not. So Brutus informs the audience of commoners that Antony had no hand in did not play a part in Caesar's death. Yet Antony shall receive the benefits of Caesar's death, that is, a place among the leaders of the commonwealth, as shall all the people receive a place in the empire of Rome from then on. With this I depart, that as I slew my best lover for the good of Rome, I have the same dagger for myself when it shall please my country to need my death. So he says that just as he killed his most affectionate friend, that is Caesar, for the good of Rome, he says the same knife or dagger that he had for Caesar will turn against himself when the good of Rome demands it or requires it. Plebeians, live Brutus, live, live. So all the commoners ask Brutus to live. First plebeian, bring him with triumph home unto his house. So the one of the plebeians says that they should accompany Brutus to his home in triumph. The third plebeian, let him be Caesar. So the third commoner says that let Brutus be the next Caesar, uh, and another says, give him a statue with his ancestors. So let the statue of Marcus Brutus be placed among the ancestors of Rome. Uh, so fourth plebeian says, Caesar's better part shall be crowned in Brutus. So the fourth commoner says that all the good qualities of Caesar will crown Brutus, will be the best parts of Brutus. Then the first plebeian says, we'll bring him to his house with shouts and clamors. So the first commoner says that they'll take Brutus to his house with noise and revelry and joy. Brutus, my countrymen. Second plebeian, peace, silence, Brutus speaks. First plebeian, peace, ho. So they call for silence in the crowd. Brutus, good countrymen, let me depart alone, and for my sake, stay here with Antony. Do grace to Caesar's corpse and grace his speech, tending to Caesar's glories, which Mark Antony, by your permission, is allowed to make. So Brutus addresses his fellow countrymen to let him depart by himself, and he asks him to stay behind to hear the speech of Antony, uh, and Antony's speech will speak of Caesar's glories and triumphs, and he says that Mark Antony has been given permission by the conspirators to give his speech, and he says, I do entreat you not a man depart, save I alone till Antony have spoke. So he asked the people to stay behind, remain, and uh, only he will leave that gathering, and he asks them not to leave till Antony has spoken. He descends and exits. First plebeian, stay ho and let us hear Mark Antony. The first plebeian says, let them all stay behind and hear Mark Antony. Third plebeian, let him go up into the public chair. So let Antony speak from the chair for the public. in the podium or the pulpit. Plebeians will hear him. Noble Antony, go up. Antony, for Brutus' sake, I am beholding to you. So Antony says that for the sake of Brutus, because of Brutus, he is grateful to them, he is beholden to them. He goes into the pulpit. Fourth plebeian. What does he say of Brutus? So uh, he says, for Brutus' sake, he finds himself beholding to us all. So they talk among them. He asks, one of them asks, what Antony says of Brutus, and the third one says that Antony said that he is grateful for Brutus's faith to us. For Plinium, to his best he speak no harm of Brutus here. So the commoners are convinced of Brutus's honesty, and they wish that Antony would not speak anything negative about Brutus. First plebeian. This Caesar was a tyrant. Third plebeian. No, that's certain. We are blessed that Rome is rid of him. Second plebeian. Peace, let us hear what Antony can say. So all the commoners are convinced that Caesar was a tyrant and that Rome is best without Caesar, and they all want to hear what Antony can say. Antony, you gentle Romans. So plebeians, peace ho, let us hear him. Antony begins his funeral oration of Caesar, for Caesar. Antony, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. So uh, Antony asks them to listen to him and says that he has come to bury Caesar, not to praise Caesar. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. So whatever evil a person does will live after the person dies, and whatever good the person does goes with him, with his spirit. It is interred with his bones. So let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus had told you Caesar was ambitious. If it was so, it were a grievous fault, and grievously had Caesar answered it. So Antony says that Brutus had told them that Caesar was ambitious, and because of his ambition, Caesar has answered very so in the most sorrowful manner with his death. Here, under leave of Brutus and the rest, if for Brutus is an honorable man, so are they all honorable men. So he says, with the permission of Brutus and the rest of the conspirators, he calls them honorable men, and all of the conspirators are honorable. So under the leave of Brutus and the rest, he comes to speak at Caesar's funeral. So he says, he was my friend, faithful and just to me. But Brutus says he was ambitious. So Antony says that Caesar was faithful to loyal to Antony, and he was just to Antony. Yet Brutus says Caesar was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. He had brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffers fill. So Caesar had brought many foreign kings whom he had conquered to Rome, and the gold and the wealth of those conquered kingdoms, of those conquered territories, had filled the treasury of Rome. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? So if Caesar were ambitious, he would have kept all the gold and the wealth of the conquered kingdom for himself. But he bought all the treasure to fill the treasury of Rome. Yes, yet is this ambitious in Caesar? When that the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. When the poor people of Rome have cried out in their need and the want, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. So if a person were ambitious, he should have a much more cruel character. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. You all did see that on the Lupercal I did present him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambitious? So on the feast of Lupercal, see, Antony had offered Caesar the crown of uh, Rome. He was going to be made emperor of Rome in front of the people, but Caesar refused it thrice. So Antony asked, did, did this seem ambitious? Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and sure he is an honorable man. I speak not to disprove what Brutus spoke, but here I am to speak what I do know. He says he's there to speak what he knows. You all did love him once, and not without cause. What cause withholds you then to mourn for him? So, you all of you loved Caesar once. What reason do you have for not shedding tears of sorrow over his death? O judgment, thou art felt to brutish beasts, and men have lost their reason. Bear with me, my heart is in the coffin there with Caesar, and I must pause till it come back to me. So he says, you people, you are not sorrowful, you do not shed tears over the passing of the great Caesar. So judgment in the minds of people has become brutal, cruel, like that of a priest. So Antony asks to pause for a moment because he says that his he he is so struck with sorrow by the death of Caesar that he should pause for some time. He weeps. So Antony publicly sheds tears. First plebeian. Methinks there's much reason in his sayings. So the commoners begin to think and they begin to feel that whatever Antony has said is reasonable because then the second plebeian says, if thou consider rightly of the matter, Caesar has had great wrong. So the second commoner begins to think that Caesar has been wrong, greatly wronged. Third plebeian, has he masters? I fear there will be a worse coming in his place. So third commoner says, if Caesar, if the great Caesar has uh, had this wrong done to him, a worse person will come in his place. Fourth plebeian, marked you his words, he would not take the crown. Therefore, it is certain he was not ambitious. So, uh, fourth plebeian says that, just as Caesar refused the crown thrice, this certainly did not seem ambitious. First plebeian, if it be found so, some will dear abide it. So, if the first commoner says, if it is found that Caesar was not ambitious, some, that is, the conspirators, will pay for it dearly. Second plebeian, referring to Mark Antony, says, poor soul, his eyes are red as fire with weeping. Thirdly, there is not a nobler man in Rome than Antony. Fourth plebeian, now mark him, he begins again to speak. So Antony begins to speak again. Antony, but yesterday the word of Caesar might have stood against the word. Now lies he here. So Antony says, just yesterday, anybody across the wide world could not have challenged Caesar, but now, today, he lies here, and none so poor to do him reverence, and none are so poor as to do him reverence and pay him respect. O masters, if I were disposed to stir your hearts and minds to mutiny and rage, I should do Brutus wrong and Cassius wrong. So he says that if he were to make the people mutiny, he would do Brutus and Cassius wrong, who you all know are honorable men. So Brutus and Cassius are honorable men. So he says that he doesn't want to make the people rebel against Antony and Cassius. I'll not do them wrong, he says. I rather choose to wrong the dead, to wrong myself and you, than I will wrong such honorable men. So he says he does not want to uh, make the people rebel against the conspirators. But he has a parchment with the seal of Caesar. I found it in his closet. So Antony shows them a piece of parchment, a piece of paper, which has Caesar's seal on it. And he says he found that piece of paper in Caesar's wardrobe. It is his will. So it is the will of Caesar. And let but the commons hear this testament, which, pardon me, I do not mean to read, and they will go and kiss dead Caesar's wounds and dip their napkins in his sacred blood. He begged a hair of him for memory, and dying mentioned it within their wills, bequeathing it as a rich legacy unto the issue. So he says, if the people were to hear the will of Caesar, then they would be so overcome with gratitude that they would dip their napkins in Caesar's blood. They would beg the hair of Caesar for to keep in the memory of Caesar, and after the people died, they would mention the hair or the napkin dipped in blood in their wills, and they would leave it to their heirs. Uh, so that is how grateful the people would be to hear Caesar's will. So fourth plebeian says, we'll hear the will. Read it, Mark Antony. Plebeians, the will, we will hear Caesar's will. Have patience, gentle friends. I must not read it. It is not meet, you know, how Caesar loved you. So Antony makes them all want to hear Caesar's will. So he delays reading the will. He says he must not read it. It is not suitable that they know how Caesar loved them. You are not wood, you are not stones, but men. So you are not unfeeling things, you are not non-living things, you are not wood or stones, but you are men. And being men, hearing the will of Caesar, it will inflame you. So, if you because you're men, once you hear the will of Caesar, you'll become overcome with emotion. It will make you mad. It is good you know what that you are his heirs, or if you should, or what would come of it. So, it is suitable that they do not know that the people themselves are the heirs. They're going to receive the property of Caesar. So, if they should know that they were the heirs of Caesar, what would come of it? Fourth plebeian, read the will, we'll hear it, Antony. You shall read the will, Caesar's will. Antony, will you be patient? Will you stay a while? I have overshot myself to tell you of it. So, uh, Antony asked him, can you be patient and will you wait for some time? He says he has overcome he has overstepped his responsibility in telling the people of Caesar's will. I fear I wronged honorable men whose daggers have stabbed Caesar. I do fear it. So he says that if by reading the will he has wronged the honorable men, that is the conspirators, whose daggers have stabbed Caesar. Uh, and fourth plebeian, they were traitors, honorable men. So fourth plebeian says that conspirators were traitors. They had conspired against the state of Rome. And he asked, are they honorable men? Plebeians, the will, the testament. Second plebeian, they were villains, murderers. The will, read the will. And so Antony reads the will. You will compel me then to read the will. You will force me then to read the will. Then make a ring about the corpse of Caesar. Stand around Caesar's corpse in a circle and let me show you that made the will. Shall I descend and will you give me leave? Shall I get down from here and stand beside the corpse and read? And will you give me leave? Come down, descend. You shall have leave. Antony descends. A ring, stand round. Fourth plebeian, stand from the hearse, stand from the body. So give Antony some room. Stand away from Antony and Caesar's body. Second plebeian, room for Antony, for most noble Antony. So Antony says, nay, press not upon me, stand far off. So do not crowd around me, stand far off.